The stars fell silent as humanity walked out of the council, and every species' new fear had just begun. Beginning. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council was unlike any chamber humanity had ever entered. Carved inside the hollow shell of a captured asteroid, its interior was a cathedral of light and sound, layered with languages translated in real time across billions of channels. Delegates of 100 species filled their tiered seats, scaled, feathered, crystalline, gelatinous, each one representing a civilization that had survived the brutal Darwinism of interstellar politics. And at the heart of it all, in a raised podium beneath the great Starfield dome, sat the human delegation. The year was 2436. Humanity had been part of the council for barely 40 years, an infant race among empires that had ruled for millennia. To most, humans were still considered newcomers, brash, adaptable, and dangerously idealistic. On this day, the agenda was simple yet pivotal. The Council Charter Amendment 77A, a motion to strip humanity of their military voting rights following a controversial series of conflicts at the galactic frontier. The arbiter, a tall, luminous veil-born, opened the session. The matter before us concerns the species called Homo sapiens. Accusations stand of unilateral action, reckless military expansion, and disproportionate retaliation in border skirmishes. The Council must now decide, are the humans to remain as equals or as subordinates? A susurrus of voices filled the chamber. The Zither Dominion, scaled and cunning, hissed their disdain. Humans are predators with no leash. They spread like wildfire, consuming all before them. Remove their fangs before they consume you. The Quarn Collective, towering insectoids, clicked their mandibles in agreement. They do not understand patience. They do not understand the eternal hive. They must be contained. Even the Qatari merchants, who had profited immensely from human ingenuity, joined in. They disrupt trade routes, undercut markets, and destabilize balance. Humanity is too volatile. And then came the vote. One by one, species after species raised their hands, appendages, or bioluminescent signals. The tally was overwhelming. By a margin of 83-4, humanity's rights as equal council members were revoked. All eyes turned to the human delegation. Middle. Ambassador Evelyn Cade stood in silence. She had expected betrayal. The weeks of debate had already painted the outcome. Yet as the official declaration echoed through the chamber, something shifted. The humans did not shout. They did not plead. They did not bargain. They simply stood. Every member of the delegation, military officers in dark uniforms, scientists in gray, diplomats in navy, rose as one. Their faces were calm, their posture steady. Evelyn Cade's voice carried across the chamber, amplified not by technology, but by resolve. We came to this council in good faith. We believed in cooperation, in peace, in shared destiny. We offered our technology, our labor, our very lives to uphold the Charter. And in return, you strip us of our voice, our dignity, our sovereignty. She paused. The translator drones carried her words into 100 alien tongues. You see us as dangerous. You are right, but not in the way you think. You fear our growth, our adaptability, our hunger. What you should fear is this. She gestured to her fellow humans. When humanity is betrayed, we do not forget. When we are silenced, we do not kneel. We rise. And then, without ceremony, she gathered her data pads, turned, and walked out of the chamber. The entire human delegation followed. Their boots echoed against the crystalline floor. Step by step, row after row of species fell into stunned silence. No one dared move. No one dared speak. The humans left the chamber, entered their sleek shuttle, and within hours their embassy was evacuated. By nightfall, the human fleet stationed at the Council's neutral docks had already burned for slip space. For the first time in centuries, a member species had walked out of the Grand Assembly, and the stars fell silent. What followed was confusion. The Council expected outrage. They expected protests, fiery speeches, perhaps even desperate pleas for compromise. That was the way of politics. But humanity gave nothing. Instead, reports began trickling in from the border sectors. Human fleets were consolidating. Civilian trade ships vanished from shared routes. Outposts once open to alien travelers were now shuttered. And then came the most unsettling news. Entire colonies went dark. The humans were pulling back, not collapsing, but withdrawing. A species that had once spread outward with boundless enthusiasm was folding in upon itself, retreating to the inner core of their territory. To the Council, this seemed like victory. They sulk, the Qatari laughed. They lick their wounds. Soon they will crawl back, begging to rejoin the fold. But they were wrong. Terribly wrong. The first real sign came 2 years later. A pirate fleet, composed of mixed species, attacked a former human trade corridor, expecting plunder without consequence. What they found instead was a wall of fire. Human ships, sleek, black-hulled, bristling with weapons far beyond their known arsenal, obliterated the raiders in minutes. Survivors spoke of torpedoes that hunted like predators, drones that tore through shields like paper, and soldiers who boarded with cold precision. These were not the same humans who had once been eager recruits in the Council's peacekeeping forces. These were something new, something honed, something dangerous. And worse, the humans did not pursue the pirates for loot or glory. They pursued them for annihilation. Every den, every base, every supply line connected to that pirate band was hunted down and burned. When word spread, terror followed. Turning point. Inside the Council, panic grew. What are they building? The Corn demanded, antennae trembling. Why withdraw unless to prepare? Hissed the Zither. Perhaps they mean to leave the galaxy entirely, speculated the Veil-born Arbiter, though even it did not believe its own words. Ambassadors were sent to Earth. They were not received. Spies were sent into human space. Few returned, and those who did spoke only of silence. Shuttered colonies, fortified shipyards, vast fleets moving in drills without end. The humans were preparing for something. And then came the revelation. A Qatari smuggler, fleeing human patrols, carried back fragments of intercepted communications. What he revealed froze the assembly. Humanity was no longer speaking of Council space or allied sectors. They spoke of the outer species. The Council had cast them out, and now humanity no longer saw itself as part of their order. They were something separate, something outside, something that looked upon the Council not as peers, but as prey. Endgame. The breaking point arrived 20 years after the walkout. The Zither Dominion, emboldened by humanity's silence, attempted to seize a border system once co-colonized with humans. They expected little resistance. What arrived was the Black Armada. Hundreds of human warships emerged from slip space, sleek, angular, armed with weapons the Council had no records of. Kinetic cannons that cracked planets. Stealth frigates that appeared like phantoms inside defense grids. Entire flotillas of autonomous drones that swarmed like locusts. The Zither fleet was annihilated in a single campaign. Not defeated. Not repelled. Annihilated.